This is a podcast for the change makers, earth shakers, paradigm shifters, trailblazers, black sheep, self-healers, and generational pattern changers. For the heart-centered rebel who craves deep connection, transparent conversation, and real talk about transformation. These are conversations for renegades by renegades. And this is from the heart of a renegade.
Please be advised, this show may contain sensitive subjects and a lot of F-bombs.
The mission of SIT.
Yeah. The mission of SIT and Sit With It and Subconscious Imprinting Technique. Let's talk about it.
Where do we start this ship and how do we put her into motion in the ocean?
Oh, I like that. Well, we were just talking before we hit record that this might be a part 1 and a part 2 because before really breaking down the mission of SIT and Sit With It is really important to talk about the why, I think, and how it all came to be.
I think that's a great idea to start there.
Now, before we dive into how it all came to be, do you want to talk about what SIT is and what subconscious imprinting technique is?
Sure, let's go there first.
Okay.
So SIT is it stands for Subconscious Imprinting Technique. And really what we're doing is we are teaching practitioners to use a modality that allows people to really identify specific moments in their life and the emotional data that's surrounding it that's actually stuck. And when it gets stuck, it's usually stuck inside of the body. And so there's this disconnect that's happening between the brain and the body. It's like, I don't actually know what time it is. Am I 39 today or am I 8 years old? And the reason why that's really important is because when we have emotional data that doesn't have a safe space to fully process from start to finish, then we start to either disconnect from it, so we dissociate from it, or we push it down, or both happen at the same time. And so when that happens, it's not fully processed through. So the body will continuously trigger it to come up to the surface when similar occurrences are happening. So let me give an example, okay? So for example, I grew up in a home where it wasn't normal to really talk about how we felt. We were a very strong doing family. You know, we did the yard work, we played the sports, we did the accomplishments. It was always a very doing family. And that's just what was normal to me. Now, as I went to school, because I wasn't really encouraged or it wasn't normal to really talk about how I felt, when I was placed in a school format where now I have to okay, hey V, what's the answer to number 6? My immediate response inside of my body was, oh God, I'm not familiar with this. And so my whole system started to get really anxious and really nervous because this was very unfamiliar. So I was very uncomfortable. And because I didn't know how to process through that, I would just keep pushing it down. And so the older I got so used to pushing this down because no one really ever taught me how to speak. And then I was afraid of being wrong. And so as I grew up throughout my life, I became extremely introverted. And I never really was forthcoming about sharing how I was feeling because it was now always associated with feeling very anxious and very wrong. And so what I recognized in my late 20s after discovering these connection points was, oh my gosh, I have a core identity of feeling like anything that I say is going to be wrong. And that if I share what I say, it's going to be wrong or it's going to be pointed out. And that was just indicated throughout my life. So when I actually just identified that in all of these moments where that emotional data had now been accumulated, I was able to begin to consolidate it. And as it's being consolidated, which it sounds like it would take a really long time, but I mean, we train practitioners to do this up to 30 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes is all that is really required for these moments in time. As I begin to consolidate it, now I don't have an issue public speaking. I don't have an issue sharing what I think and what I know, but that's not where I came from. And so the beautiful thing about SIT is that everybody is a product of their environment and the thoughts and the beliefs and the judgments and the experiences. And when we have this data locked into our system, that's the only way we think we can operate. And where a lot of people are like, well, why would I need SIT? You'll know you need it because you're going to feel like you're bumping up against a part of you that can't change. Why am I always like this? Why do I always feel like it's not enough? Why do I have this chronic shoulder pain that I've seen 5,000 different practitioners and it still won't go away? And so SIT helps to identify specific moments in time that are stuck with emotional data, whereby a practitioner helps you acknowledge that, release it, and let it go, so that you can actually move beyond that and be in the present moment. When you're in the present moment, you're not worried, you're not anxious, you're not afraid, you're not recollecting old memories and old data, all that old sensory stuff. And so that's like in a nutshell, SIT is helping you access moments from the past that are totally messing and infiltrating with your present moment.
And that is through chronic pain, which I feel like comes after you've actually been experiencing life through the lens of emotional tension.
Totally.
So you are operating from emotional or behavioral tension, and that starts to show up in your body as well. And that is where we originally, when we created SIT, it was to resolve physical symptoms.
Absolutely.
But then we started to realize, oh, these physical symptoms are actually an expression of the emotional symptoms and the emotional tension that wasn't addressed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So back in 2015, before we knew any of this and before you knew how to express yourself,
Totally. Yeah.
you and I grew up in very different childhoods and homes. And for me to be heard was the opposite. So you weren't really taught how to talk about your feelings or
Speak up
or what was going on. And for me, I was shown that to be heard is you just yell it out. Like you just, it was very, very opposite. And so we came together and kind of collided in a way where
it was like a thunderstorm.
Yeah. It was. And it was beautiful because I remember you physically could not express yourself. Like it was physically so difficult for you.
Yeah.
But you also had a degree in French literature. And so back in the day, I said to you, okay, whatever it is that you like want to get off your chest or off of your heart, whatever it is that you're trying to say it to me in French first, because I don't understand French.
Yeah. So the risk was extremely low because you wouldn't understand what I was saying. So I got to like practice it first. Yeah.
And so you would say it in French and I'd be like, I don't know what you're saying. But it allowed you to kind of get the energy out and maybe feel the safety of you being able and allowed to express yourself. And then you would say it in English and then we were able to work through whatever it is. And I showed up to the relationship a bit opposite, where I think maybe my honesty was abrupt. There was a lot of like just raw, here's how I'm feeling. Like bam, wham, bam.
It was very confronting.
It was very confronting. And we worked through that very early on, which I feel really grateful for. Yeah. And I believe that that is what has set the stage for us to be now in a relationship for how many years?
It's almost 13 at this point.
Almost 13. So back to 2015, you had just started a career as an acupuncturist.
Yeah.
And it was new and it was fresh and it was exciting. And you were working in a clinic out of town where you were driving how far every day? An hour?
It was about an hour each way. Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah.
And I was very inspired watching you have this career that you were not only excited and delighted by, but that was helping people. I thought that was really cool because at that time I was a heavy equipment operator. And so I was working long days, losing my summer. I'd come home and blow dirt out of my nose.
Yeah.
I was exhausted. I was angry. I was a very, very angry person back then. Didn't treat my body very well. And so it was interesting and maybe confronting in a different way to see you living a very different experience of the world and life. And as I was doing heavy equipment operating, I just felt like I wanted more, and you really inspired that within me. And so I felt called to go on a solo journey to Costa Rica. I asked if you wanted to come, but you were like, I'm just building my practice. Like, I need to stay and do this. And I also felt like it was a really good opportunity to express self-dependency and not codependency, which is ironic because what happened very shortly after, I feel like, created codependency in a way.
Yeah.
But I decided to go to Costa Rica on a mission to find myself.
For 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks by myself, going down there. How old was I? 20, 21? 22?
We met in 2013. You were 21, so you wouldn't have turned 23 yet.
Okay. So just a young buck.
Yeah.
And I remember looking back at the airport and we were just blubbering. Like we were sobbing as if we knew what was about to go down. I don't know, because it just seemed unreasonable how much you and I were crying when you saw me off at the airport.
It was uncontrollable. Like I remember even for myself being like, this feels like way bigger than it's supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, in this moment. But yeah, it was like we were sobbing as if something terrible had happened.
Yeah.
But you were going on this beautiful adventure.
Yeah, to go and find myself. And so I get down there and it was really weird. Like it was really weird to do this on my own, rent a car. It was scary and exciting and all of the things. But a few days in, I started to feel this inconsolable sadness, like deep to my core, felt like something very bad happened. But at the same time, I was like, I just assumed I was homesick. And I just chalked it up to that. I'm like, I must just be homesick, but I couldn't stop crying and I felt nauseous to my core. And this, you guys, is the power of human beings and how aware we really are and how aware we don't realize we are and how psychic we truly are. Because 6 days into that trip, I discovered that my dad had died back home and he chose to end his life by suicide. And so I was down there and you got the phone call.
Yeah. I was at work at the clinic and I was just in between clients. And as I was standing in the back room, I mean, I always just left my phone back there because there was no really anywhere else I could leave it. And I remember seeing your mom's little face pop up on my screen and I just thought, that's really weird. Like, why is your mom calling me? And I remember picking up the phone and the sound of her voice, the way it was shaking, like she was just like, have you talked to Ocean? And I was like, no, I haven't heard from her in like 24 hours. She must be outside of some kind of internet connectivity.
Well, and that was the weird thing because there was a massive storm in Costa Rica and all the internet went down.
Oh my God. I don't think I even knew that.
Yeah. So I couldn't talk to anybody. It was like a solid 24 hours where I was literally offline, couldn't talk to anybody, no internet. Yeah.
And so here I am on the phone with your mom and her voice is really shaky and she was just very upset. And she said, Ocean's dad died. And she's like, I need you to get a hold of her. And I said, this has to be your phone call. I'm sorry, it has to be you. And she was like, okay. I will get a hold of her. And I said, I will message her too and say, you need to talk to your mom. And so after that, what ended up happening?
Well, so I woke up the next day and again, hadn't talked to anybody for the entire previous day. And I was out with a bunch of people who I had met that were about my age, early 20s. We were all staying in this hostel and we went for dinner and then they were all going to go partying and dancing. But I was like shaking on the inside and just felt so sad and I couldn't be present in that moment. And so I actually went back to the Airbnb, or not the Airbnb, to the hostel and I just went to bed. I just went to sleep. And then I woke up the next day and the internet had been restored. And I opened my Facebook Messenger and I actually saw a message from my cousin. And she said, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. And so now my mind is racing and I'm like, what do you mean? And yeah, that was how I found out, which was wild. And so it ended up being a very wild next couple days of somehow getting home. You booked flights. I don't really remember a lot. And I watched a lot of Suits.
It was nuts because you were hours away from the nearest airport because you had driven up to this place you really wanted to go to. And so it was wild at that point because it would have taken way longer for someone like me to fly down to come and get you. So you had to get back in the car in shock, drive to the airport, deal with whatever aftermath of the rental vehicle, get on a plane.
Yes.
And just get home.
And I don't remember any of it. I remember sitting in the courtyard outside of the hostel after finding out. And I remember, because I think I had to stay another night.
Yep.
And I remember literally just watching Suits back to back to back to back. Like I 100% checked out. I was like, I didn't know how to sit with an emotion like that or a feeling like that, right? So somehow I make it in the car by myself, all the whole rigmarole, make it home, and then start the journey of going through being decimated.
Yeah.
You asked me today before we hit record, how are you doing? Because we're recording this on Father's Day, which was not planned.
We are, yeah.
That was not planned, which is kind of funny. So far, we've recorded 3 episodes, my beba, and 2 of them we are blubbering messes. This really is from the heart of a renegade.
Yeah.
Is what this podcast is.
Yeah.
All right, so make it home.
And when you came home, you know, grief and shock will do, and loss will do wild things to a human, right? Because a part of you dies alongside with the loss that you experience. And I remember seeing you and recognizing like I didn't lose my dad, but I lost my partner as I knew who she was and got a different one back. And you coming back, I could see you. It was as if you were existing inside of a fog.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you
wrestle and reckon with that?
Yeah. So 6 days before I left, you and I went to my dad's.
We did.
And we had a beautiful evening.
We did. We drank beer and clam. We played crib.
And he had a roaring fire.
He did. It was an incredible fire.
He really knew how to make a fire. And I knew that he was struggling at that time because him and we talked quite a bit. And I remember bringing him groceries.
We brought him eggs. We brought him bread.
And I think like a couple $100 or something.
And a bag of chips. Yeah.
And a bag of chips.
Yeah.
So my dad had, there was a couple things. He had a wrist injury that nothing would really resolve that stopped him from being able to work. So he had tried surgery, of course. He had tried acupuncture. He had tried herbs. He had tried many different things. And it got to the point where he couldn't work. And he also had struggled with seizures for a very, very long time, that many years prior, like I think it was when I was 1, like I was a baby, he was prescribed the wrong medication that caused the seizures to be worse. And so I knew he was struggling at that time because of work and everything that does to a person.
Well, and here's a man that his whole life, for the most part, he was a roofer.
Yeah.
So he needed his wrists.
Literally.
And that's what he knew how to do. And that's what he knew how to do well.
Since he was 16.
Yeah.
Right. And then here he was all these years later as 57, 56. Yeah. So we had this beautiful evening with him that meant so much to me because as a queer person, when I came out to him when I was like very young, he was not available. Like he was not open to that and was very vocal about it. And so to have that really beautiful evening together was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. So yeah, how do you reckon with all of it? We have told this story 1,000 times. What is happening?
I mean, there is an energy in the room today. That's for sure.
Jeez Louise. Okay. So the process of healing starts to take place. And actually, I don't even know if it was healing yet. It was just pure, yeah, like you said, walking around in a fog. I actually started to experience these weird amnesia-like symptoms where I remember one day I got home from the job site back into Edmonton, I should say, and I went to the grocery store, and I could not remember where I parked the car, and I couldn't remember how to get home.
Yeah, you called me crying.
Yeah,
You didn't know where you were.
I was so confused. And so that was super scary. And then not too long after that, I started to have migraines. And I got my first migraine when I was sitting in a front loader at a gravel pit. And I used to be in this gravel pit all day long, and I would be scooping huge buckets full of gravel and then pouring it into the back of trucks, and then they would take it away. And that was all I did. And I remember sitting there at lunch, and I ate a Reese's Pieces peanut butter cup. And I'm just sitting there chilling, listening to music, whatever, in the loader. And all of a sudden, I experience what feels like getting shot in the head. I was like in so much pain. It felt like a bullet to the brain. And I was just like, what is happening? What is happening? And I literally thought that I was having like a brain aneurysm. And I phoned you crying again then.
Yeah. I got a lot of
not codependent at all.
A lot of screaming phone calls.
And I told you what was happening, and you were like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? And I think I was scared to ask them if I could leave, which is just crazy. And I think I might have powered through the pain that day. I don't even know if I left work.
You didn't. You stayed in your loader.
And so what I later discovered was this was migraines. And at that point in my life, I hadn't even experienced a headache. And so to have a migraine come on, it was truly so shocking. And throughout that summer and that year, they would come on at the most random times. So I would get migraines, but we discovered later on, it was not random.
There was a very clear link to it.
A very interesting pattern.
But what it ended up doing was it was really pulling you further away from working in the machines. You know, you started to go to all these different practitioners because you were like, what is going on? So you'd gone to a grief counselor, you'd gone to a massage therapist, you'd gone to a physician, and, you know, at the end
naturopath, craniosacral therapy, all the things.
They were asking you to modify your diet and talk to you about grief and do all the medications, but nothing touched it, did it?
Nothing touched the migraines. So through the whole journey of getting through this shock and trauma, I had just knew intuitively in some part of me that I needed to get around horses because I grew up riding horses and they were like a huge part of my safe space. And so I had looked up, I don't even know what I Googled honestly, but I found a horse massage program in Edmonton that was starting. I think it was like the next month or something.
Yeah, it was very shortly after.
And I ended up signing up for that.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to be connected to these horses. And my boss, they knew what I was going through. They gave me the time. They were like, take your time, totally understand. And so I went through this equine massage therapy course and started to learn a little bit about energy because we did do a little craniosacral work on the horses. And I met this wild woman named Luba, and she was always late. And she was very short and very big energy. And she drove a gigantic Toyota Sequoia. If you guys have ever seen one of those, like a fucking spaceship coming down the road, definitely a 3-row SUV. And she was so small, but she had such big energy. And I was also struggling at that time with chronic shoulder pain from what I thought heavy equipment operating, because you're constantly using joysticks and spinning wheels and bouncing around in these machines, right? And so she had said to me, you need a massage, because I was really struggling with, there was this one move and technique that we would do on the horse where we would literally hold their leg and they would lean into us. And it was,
wow,
you needed strength.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling with doing that specific maneuver. And so she had said, you need a massage. You need to go and see a massage therapist. And you should go to this school called Macamee, because you'll get 2 massages for free as a volunteer. And also while you're there, you should do a tour, because if you do a tour, they'll give you an iPad. And I was like, ooh, cool. Okay. So I go to Macamee on this random influence, and I come home that day with a macrame hoodie,
yeah.
$36,000 in student loan debt. And I'm like, hey, Beba, I signed up for college today.
I remember that. I was standing just outside of the kitchen of our house at the table, and I'm like, what happened today?
And it just felt like this beautiful divine synchronicity and serendipity. And so I signed up, and in my mind, I'm like, we're going to be able to help people heal. Like, I'll do massage, you'll do your acupuncture.
We'll be the stream team.
We'll have a home called, what did it? I remember.
It was the healing home.
The healing home.
But home was H''OHM.
Yeah, which is kind of neat. And it just seemed like it made so much sense. So during school, I'm going to school, doing the thing, and the migraines were still at play here. So it was tough because I remember, I think it was the first day of school, they had us write down our story and what led us there. And each person was supposed to get up in front of class and read it, which is really interesting for massage. And that morning I had a booster juice on the way to school. And all of a sudden, it wasn't my turn yet, but I did have a little bit of nervousness about getting up and speaking. But the aura started and the migraine started to come on. And so I actually left school. I didn't share my story that day. And I was driving down the white mud, puking into a dog poop bag because you get so disoriented, or I would get so disoriented from the aura, the ocular migraines. And or aura, is it aura migraines?
Well, the aura that is, I guess it would be an aura migraine. Yeah.
And it was kind of comical because I'm like driving and I'm like, I'm going to throw up, but I knew how long I had to get home before the migraine became blinding. So I'm like digging in my pocket. We had an Italian Mastiff, and rest in peace. You'll hear about Riley in Dr. V's interview episode, which comes with really big dog poop bags. And so here I am literally driving down the white mud, throwing up into a dog poop bag.
Like to the point where I had to go to the office. And so I was coming out from our house and you were turning into our house and you were just holding the bag up in the window. And I'm like, that's so sad.
And we were on the phone, I think.
Yeah.
I think that was the third time I phoned you scream crying.
Yes, that's right.
Oh my gosh. Locked myself in the bedroom with the blinds drawn and then just wrote it out. And so that became my life of these migraines where I would not know when they would come on. And on the last time I ever had a migraine, I had woken up that day and I said, oh, no. I have another migraine coming on and I have a 3-hour appointment. And you were like, where are you going for 3 hours?
That I don't know about.
Yeah,
How was the, what?
What are you doing? And I had so much guilt and so much shame because we just bought a house. I was in school and I had signed up for a massive chest tattoo that I really couldn't afford, but grief does funny things to a person. And so you at that time, because of trying to get to the root and trying to get to the bottom of what these migraines were, after we had tried so many different things, we had sat in the neurologist's office, I had gone to all these massage appointments, all acupuncture, herbs, like everything. Nothing would resolve these migraines. And you found information online, which, by the way, when we talk about roar funnels, you fell into a funnel.
I did.
And that funnel taught you about repressed emotions and the biological function of forgiveness.
Yeah.
As well as the physical effects of emotions on the body.
Yeah.
So I had this migraine and you said, listen, I read this thing. I think I might be able to help you with this. Okay. And then you like slowed down, you tuned in and you were like, it has to do with your dad. You were 12 years old. And what were the emotions that you uncovered?
Guilt and shame.
So here I was and I'm like, okay. And we're literally laying in bed and this migraine is coming on and I have a 3-hour appointment in an hour. And I closed my eyes and I'm like, oh, I remember. I was 12 years old and my dad got me this iPod Touch, which was super high tech at that time. And I was so excited about this iPod. And then he said, just make sure Donna doesn't find out. Now, Donna was my stepmom, who my dad had been with since I was like 3 years old, who was very psychologically abusive to all of us. And so here you have a 12-year-old who's been given this gift and then is told, but you need to hide it. So there's this expansion and then a contraction.
Like the joy, the opening of the joy. Yeah.
And then contraction, I need to hide it. And in that moment, we were shown the pattern that here I was about to go and spend money on this tattoo that I was really excited about, but I was hiding it.
And when we rewound all the way back to the very first one, when you were in the machine and the Reese, you see who had said, I bought a Reese Pieces
peanut butter cup.
Yeah.
Well, at that time, you guys, we also were on this like organic health kick, and I had bought a Reese's peanut butter cup and I was eating that. And yeah, I did feel a little bit guilty. And then when I remembered the other time that I had gotten a migraine, I had bought super bougie grass-fed cheese where like you could go and get like $3 cheese or you could get $11 cheese. And I spent $11 on the cheese. Mm-hmm. And it was that same thing. I felt that guilt, even though I believe that we vote with our dollar and that was what I was doing, but there was still money guilt. And then when I had the booster juice, a $9 freaking smoothie,
yeah, it's all fruit,
right? It was the same thing. I felt guilty for spending that money. And so we literally tracked all of my migraines, came back to this buying something or doing something and then having a little bit of guilt and then like kind of like contracting. And in that moment, you helped me interrupt that migraine, and I never had one after that.
In fact, you got up and you were like, "Oh, it's gone." And then I was like, "You got to get to your appointment."
And I went to the appointment, and now I have this massive chest tattoo. And so we were like, "What just happened? What?" Mm-hmm. And we became very, very obsessed with learning more of this work. And we ended up traveling and we studied with a doctor down in Indiana who her whole thing was all around forgiveness, which I really do believe is like the most powerful thing that we can do. And life will test you on that. And we are being tested in that right now.
Totally.
And we started to learn about generational healing. We started to study with Dr. Gabor Mate. We started to listen to Bruce Lipton. Like we were listening to anything that we could get our hands on because we were like, what is this magic? Mm-hmm. And not only did I resolve my migraines at that time, I also resolved the chronic shoulder pain that I thought had to do with steering a big piece of heavy equipment and using a joystick all day.
Yeah.
I had resolved psoriasis that was all over my knees and my elbows.
Yeah. In your knee pain, you had patellofemoral syndrome too.
That was so bad. Same thing. I went to physio and all of the things, resolved that. It was not physical. And my rage and anger over time really started to go away. Like I used to kick things. I used to boot. I've put holes in walls back in the day. It's been a long time, but that was normal. Like that was my explosive anger. And over time, and it's so beautiful, you guys, we just had a grad call with someone on Friday, and she said she had so much rage, and after going through the program, she's like, it's just gone. And I asked her what, but where'd it go? How? And she's like, I don't know. It must have been one of the clearings, like something. She's like, it's gone. She's like, my husband is sure happy about it.
I'm sure happy about it too.
Yeah. And so after you start doing this work, like, yes, the physical symptoms resolve, but also the emotional and the behavioral things that are also underneath the surface also resolve.
Yeah.
And so at that time, we really became obsessed with this. And I actually decided I need to drop out of massage therapy school because this is what I want to bring into the world. And this is when we talk about having the soul of a healer and the heart of a renegade. It is really listening to your awareness and blazing your own damn trail, because every single person that I told, aside from you, that I have to drop out of massage therapy school, they all projected their own fears, scarcity, limitation onto me. And they said, don't do it. You're making a huge mistake. the school counselor said to me, if you drop out, like, I love this, but like, people aren't going to pay for this. Like, you need massage because they can cover it under benefits.
Now, I want to ask you a question before you go forward with this.
Yeah.
Because here's an opportunity that you were excited about to drop out. Like, you had found, I remember you were like, oh my gosh, I found the eureka. Like, I need to go and do this.
Yeah.
And here you had all of these adults or authority figures who were essentially operating from the same pattern that your dad did to you. The joy followed by, but you need, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that grand pattern at play, what was that like to have all these people, when you were so excited, tell you not to do that?
Well, I thought they were crazy because here I'm sitting in front of the school counselor and the director. I called a meeting with them. And I let them know I'm dropping out and I have to tell you guys something. I resolved migraines, chronic migraines that were stopping me from being able to come to school, that were like ruining my life. And it was a memory from when I was 12. And they couldn't receive it. They were just like, okay, awesome. Love that. And you need to finish school. Like, you need a modality that can be covered under benefits. And then the same thing, and God bless her, like, I do not hold this against these people, but the same thing, the clinic owner I worked for, I was doing my practicum under, she said the exact same thing. And so I kind of just thought they were all crazy because I'm like, you guys, like, I'm trying to tell you that I have found the holy grail and you're not hearing it. But it didn't, I have always had that, like, I was kicked out of school. I was entrepreneurial at a young age. And so I have always had that little bit of grit to just do my own thing anyways. And so I was more just like, are you guys even hearing what I'm saying? Like, I'm telling you, I just unlocked fucking gold. And you're just like, yeah, okay, cool. You should finish your degree. And so I didn't listen because I just knew that God was calling me for something bigger. And I could not imagine staying in the four walls of a treatment room and that being it. I'm like, no, there's so much more to this. And I even remember it specifically working on a volunteer while I was still in massage school, but had experienced this liberation. She had, what's that wrist issue? Carpal tunnel. And I just started to ask her a couple questions, like different than massage therapists would usually ask. And she had talked about this chicken factory that she worked at. And the things that she saw in this chicken factory. And I was like, in my head, no wonder, like, look at what you have been holding, even emotionally, seeing things like, knowing how our food is created should not traumatize us. And it did.
Wow. Wow.
And so obviously she was on leave and wasn't working there anymore. But that was what caused her to leave, was the carpal tunnel. But I'm like, there's so much more to this. Like, I just knew, I could tell because, you know,
there's so much emotion behind it.
There's so much emotion behind it. And so I don't know. I just was like, yeah, no, I'm going out and doing my own thing. Now I want to toss it to you because that was my experience. And then I realized I got to go out and do this, do something bigger.
Yeah.
And while this is all happening, your acupuncture treatment room was getting rocked because you were like, okay, if this resolved her migraines, I'm going to.
Yeah, because once that unlocked for you, same thing. You know, I was just lit. Like, what else could this be for? And so here I am working at that point, you know, I had left the original place I worked in. And so now I was in a new spot and I was in a different city. And so I was rebuilding from scratch. And I give huge thanks to my friend who he needed my consulting advice for sharing rooms for practitioners like me. And I needed a space to practice. So it worked out really great. But the important piece here is that it was in an Olympic weightlifting gym, which was not a clientele that I was specifically working on prior to that. I was really kind of a general practitioner and I really liked working on pain. So it kind of made sense. I thought athletes were super cool. So it made sense. But what else was really interesting is that I was one of the only females in the entire building. And so what that meant is I was surrounded by men who looked at their body in a very specific way. And if it wasn't performing, that must mean that it's physical. And so at that point, I'm understanding this eureka about pain and emotion and moments in time. And it was an interesting experience to be in this gym and to look these huge dudes in the eye and be like, oh, that's not an issue with your shoulder. That's an issue with this moment, all those years ago, the one I'm talking about. And I remember a man looking at me kind of like crazy, like, how does she know there's a different moment in time? How does she know that I know that that's the moment? And that situation in particular, I remember that a couple of days later, he came back up to me and he said, that like conversation that we had, and you said it's like that thing, but you didn't really because we were in a group and you didn't tell everybody what the thing was. He's like, I really thought about that. And I really explored it, and my shoulder pain is gone. And so it became this thing that suddenly took off. And for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like it was scary because it was so different than what I was taught to be in school. I was taught to work a certain way. I was taught to approach people a certain way. And even though I practiced energy medicine, even though we talked about emotional factors in my training, I was never prepared for this level of integrating it all. It was like we glazed over this emotional component and we just wanted to focus on the needle formations in the body. And so to insert all of this together, my practice just exploded when people started to realize that I could make these connections with them and that their pain would just vanish. They were like, oh my gosh, if you could do that with my shoulder, if you could do that with my hip, if you could do that with my back, what else can you do with that? So then I started exploring, okay, well, I mean, at this time now we're calling it SIT. So now we've like developed it between you and I. I know you had a conversation with your friend and was like, I think we should call it this subconscious imprinting, which is also this synchronistic thought that just drops in, right?
It was so divinely guided. I remember exactly where we were sitting. Yeah.
And I wasn't even with you at the time. You told me later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what I realized. I'm like, these are subconscious imprints and somatic imprints and generational imprints that are causing physical, behavioral, and emotional symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, subconscious imprinting technique was born while I was sitting at, I think it's called Malt and Mortar off White Ave. I don't even know if it's there anymore.
It might not even be there anymore.
And he was like, that's a great idea because it stands for sit. And I was like, oh, which is really cool because we're helping people sit with it. And it just like
just flowed. Just so beautiful the way that happened. And so for me in my practice, it became this, it's funny when I reflect on it and I think about acupuncture and how standardized acupuncture has become in the West. But when you really look at acupuncture, like it's pretty fucking weird. And what I mean by that is we talk about internal dragons and demons and ghost points. And so like in its nature, it's weird. We don't talk about this when we're working with people because there's such an immediate inclination to discredit the work, even though it's so powerful. Mm. And so it was as if I was given permission in a whole other way to just lean into how weird I really am and allow it to be part of the work. And what I mean by really weird, like I remember this massage therapist and man, she asked me like 100 times, come and work in my clinic. And I was like, nah, I'm good in my own little room. And it was after I had given her this session. And in the session, she had chronic shoulder pain that would go up into her neck. And she was a massage therapist, so it made sense that it was repetitive in nature. And I remember like here I am in my dark room and I can hear like the boom of the Olympic weights like dropping in the distance. Oh, yeah. And here we are like in this session. And I said, your shoulder stuff it's your father-in-law. And she's like, my father-in-law is dead. I'm like, I know. He's stuck in your neck. And she was like, oh shit, okay. Can you get it out? And I was like, of course I can.
I love how casual that is. Oh shit, okay. Can you get it out?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a lot of tears in between those, but it was fascinating because here we do the acupuncture and here we do the work of sit. And then you do all the gua sha and you could see it was almost like as if you could see years of just holding this in her neck, only in that one spot, come out through the gua sha. And after that point, she was just like, no, seriously, you need to come.
She
and
was
work
like, please, now.
Now there was her and there was another one. And I found out later on that those two massage therapists, like they had like conversations where it was like they were subliminally and telepathically being like, she's going to come. Like they were manifesting me. And I did go and work. It was a great time to go and work with them. But the power of it was, it went in so many different directions. And it's like you said at the very beginning of us opening this call, like we are so psychic, we are so interconnected. And these emotional factors go so deep inside of our system that I think it's only now that people are really starting to write about it and study about it and talk about it. And I mean, Dr. Candace Pert did a brilliant job in her book, The Biology of Belief, Molecules of Emotions, where she really talked about how these factors that are inside of your brain, these are in your mind, also exist inside of your body. So even though you're interpreting it through your brain, your body is responding at the exact same time. And sometimes your body now responds faster.
Wow.
Because now it's working off of survival instincts. And so here I am working with all these people, and it was just so cool to watch these athletes, you know, go from, I'll never hit those PRs, to me being like, this doesn't have anything to do with what you physically did last week. This has everything to do with the broken relationship with your father. And by mending that, it mended their pain and they were able to hit past their PRs.
Which is incredible.
It is incredible. So SIT really helped integrate mind-body medicine to what I originally went to school for. But not all the dots were connected in the way that I could really put language to. And so now inside of the treatment room at that time, it was like I was weaving people's bodies and their minds and their spirits back together with or without needles.
And I think it's incredible because when you had said it really took off and that people were like, what? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
You were taught that it's really common, number one, to run multiple rooms as an acupuncturist, which is one way of doing it. And also to sell 10 session packages, right? Like 10 session treatment plans, essentially.
Yeah, I found out really early in my career, so within the first year and a half, that wasn't for me. I at one point ran up to 3 rooms, and I remember where I was standing in that clinic. I remember who the people were that were on the table, and I said, if I keep doing this, I'm going to hurt somebody.
Wow.
Because it was too much. I didn't have an assistant. I didn't have a support. And even though that was the standard, like you've made it if you're running 3 rooms, to me, I'm like, this is dangerous.
Wow.
And so to remove that and be like, I just want to focus on one person at a time. I can give them all of my attention and I can probably get them better results.
Which is so beautiful because you in that moment went against the grain and went against the norm and followed that renegade heart within yourself.
Absolutely.
And you did something different. And as a result, you were able to get deeper results with people in one session than what they were getting in those 10 sessions. And so what ended up happening is your schedule took off like wildfire.
It did. I had people, I had practitioners in the area who had 20 years of experience on me, and they were sending me their most complex clients. And then that just kind of kept building and building and building.
Because then those clients would tell their whole friends and family and be like, you have to go and see this woman.
Yes. The referral network was so strong because the results were also so strong and they were lasting. That was the piece, is that people would come in with 20 years of a pain and leave and be like, that's nuts. It's gone. Like it's completely gone. And their emotional health also got better as well. So they're happier people.
I think that's the most incredible thing is the pain goes away. And like for me with the migraines, it's like, oh, I don't have to hide when I want to buy something. I don't have to feel guilty. Like it changes your behavior as well.
Totally. Yeah.
And so people will come in to resolve back pain and then they leave and realize. We have one case study, a woman who had worked with one of our practitioners. She went and saw him and she went to see him for back pain.
Yeah.
And it ended up coming back to a high school relationship that was locked in her back. And she said, not only did the back pain go away, but she realized how that had affected all of the other relationships in her life. And so now she's able to approach her relationships differently. And that awareness is freedom.
What a change to life.
Okay, so your schedule starts to take off like frickin' wildfire. And I remember you getting to the point where you were having vertigo because, cool, this is amazing. You have this massive referral network. People are driving from different provinces for a single session with you.
Yeah.
It was nuts. We were like, what is happening? and you were working 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes like 10-hour days.
Yeah.
And then you and I were at a Gabor Mate conference, learning more. And we're sitting on the tarmac in Victoria, about to come back after this epic weekend. And you then, the tables turned, and now you're sitting beside me, and you go, oh no, 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 no. Almost like me when I had the migraine.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no. And you just, I'm like,
So
fuck,
sad.
who died? Who died? Oh no, oh no, oh no. Which is my natural response now, anytime, even still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
like
right.
when something bad, I'm like, oh no, somebody died.
And I was so devastated because what had actually happened was I was looking at my phone and I had an email that came through. And on that email, it was someone else requesting an appointment. And I had at this point, I had a 3-month wait list, like fully locked Monday to Friday, sometimes, and Saturdays.
No, Saturdays, because you were getting vertigo.
That's right.
You would get vertigo on the Saturdays.
Yeah, to try and stop me from going to work. You need to rest, lady.
You know why? Because the body says no.
The body said no.
When the
Wasn't
human
enough
doesn't,
support for me.
When the human doesn't say no, the body is
Body
going to say
will-
no for you.
It's very true. It was saying no hard. And so at that point, so yes, I was overwhelmed and stressed. And even then I had an assistant at this point now.
You did, yes.
And you were like, what's the problem? And I just told you, like, it's just,
I can't fit this person on my schedule. And I said, give me your phone.
Which I just want to rewind for a second, because I remember after your father passed, it was just chaos. We at that point had bought a house, but I was excused from my original clinic that I was working at. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing I might have been a little angry. I might have been going through some stuff. I might have been a little stressed, with everything that was going on. And I may not have been the easiest to work with. And so I was excused, and I was told to go find myself. And so
you did.
I did. Thank goodness for that opportunity. Didn't feel it that way at the time, but man, am I grateful now. And I remember being at the dog park, sipping a coffee at 9:30 in the morning, crying, being like, oh, I don't have any clients. And you were like, you remember this moment. Sipping coffee at 9:30 at the dog park, being able to watch the dogs and sit in nature, because you're not going to have it for very long.
Yeah.
And you called it.
I did. And then not long after that, all of this went down.
And I'm crying on a plane going, oh no, there's too many clients.
Yeah. And I said, give me your phone. And so I took your phone and I wrote, hi, I currently have this big of a wait list. However, if you want to get in as a VIP client, it's $300 and I can get you in next week or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't send it, but I passed it back to you and you read this and you were like, I can't send this. I can't charge $300. And I was like, okay, well, currently, like, you're either going to say, I can't get you in for 3 months, or you send this and he says, yeah, get me in. And you just had a VIP client upgrade.
Yeah.
And within minutes, you sent it.
I did.
Which I'm really proud of you.
And I just kind of like screamed in my seat. We still hadn't taken off yet.
Yeah. And within minutes, there was a reply saying, deal. Great.
What time?
When can I get in?
Yeah.
And you saw that person and got the results that you were known for. Mm-hmm. And then that became your ceiling, became your floor.
Yes. Your
ceiling became your floor. So now any new client was $300.
Yes.
And so you accidentally just became I think Canada's most expensive acupuncturist, and started to charge $300 a session.
Yeah. I'll never forget the one man who looked me in the eyes, because I helped his back pain that he was like seized. He could barely walk. And I helped him too. It was fear that was in his back. And he looked me in the eye as he hit a very generous tip on top of that. And he said, don't forget this, that you are worth this. Mm-hmm. And I remember that kind of sinking through my whole body and recognizing the value of what I was providing for people.
Well, yeah, because they could, okay, let's say they do the 10 session protocol and they spend a minimum of $1,000 on that. Mm-hmm. Or they go one time for $300.
Yeah.
Do the math, right?
Pretty good bang for your buck.
It's a good bang for your
time.
Buck. So we actually thought that would deter people from booking with you. But what ended up happening is it didn't do that. The opposite happened.
It made me even more lucrative.
It did. Yeah. And so your schedule did not slow down. But the issue was still at play here, which is that you were booked out. Mm-hmm. And so something had to change.
And I remember us walking through the dog park. There was quite a few practitioners at this point that were like, can you just frickin' teach us?
Teach us what you're doing. I want to stop sending you all my clients.
Yeah. And which was fair because here I am, a one-stop shop, and nobody else has the information. And at that point, you were really on your way out of massage anyways. Mm-hmm. And I remember you said to me, let's sit you down. Tell me everything that you do from start to finish, which is what you're such a genius at. And you sat me down because at that point I was like, I don't know how could I even teach this? Like it's so up in the air.
It was very intuitive for you.
And you sat me down and you said, here's a start and here's a finish. And everything in between, you just so masterfully grabbed it out of the air, out of my head, and it then turned into a system.
Yes. Yes, we turned it into a step-by-step system. And that year, we were like, well, let's see. Like,
let's cross our fingers.
Let's
Can
see.
they do it?
Are they actually going to even want this? I remember telling one person, Leah Tabitha, shout out to Leah, and she was like, we were telling her that we were thinking of launching this, and she was like, I'm in. Sign me up.
Yeah.
And so we had her, she was a stay-at-home mom at the time. We had a flower farmer. We had a somatic sex therapist. We had
an acupuncturist,
massage therapist. We had so many different humans who all raised their hand and said, yes, I want to learn this. And we met every Monday in person. And then there'd be a support call on Thursdays and videos that they watched in between. And you and we would teach all day, and then we would fucking run home, and then we would record content for them afterwards for them to watch, and then we would host a call on Thursday, and it was just the wildest time.
Do you remember some of those moments where here we'd teach all day, we'd go home to record the information so that they would unlock for them the next morning, and sometimes we would record until like 10 o'clock at night just to find out it didn't work. Or we said something stupid.
Oh my God.
And then we're like crying because now we have to do it all over again.
Or the internet wasn't working and it would take like forever to get it uploaded. Yeah.
So sometimes we'd be up till midnight to just get it out there.
I want to say now those were the days. We were just running. We would like teach, and then we'd be like, okay, here's the gaps that we need to fill in the content. So then that was why we would record the content, and it was just epic. And that year, we ended up having 3 different cohorts run through that year. Yeah. And the results that they were getting in class. It was so cool. I've got goosebumps right now. Some crazy shit went down.
So wild.
Oh my God.
The in-person it just created this. I mean, when you bring that many people together,
magic happens.
But I remember at some moments standing back going, like watching, because we would separate them into corners of the room. Yeah. And just watching them going, oh my gosh, like they are following. They're just doing the step by step, and then shoulder pain is going away, eye infections are going away, relationships are changing, marriages are transforming, addictions that we didn't even consider started to dissolve. Like it was.
I remember one person, she resolved her binge eating that she didn't even talk about in class because it was just a symptom of something else that she had worked on.
Yeah, it was such a cool experience to watch that. I mean, from my experience, it was so scary because here I am, my whole lifelong pattern of not standing up and speaking. And I don't remember much of the first class because I had to power through that. But what an incredible experience it has been. And it was almost as if breadcrumbs kept being dropped in front of us. Yeah. And all of these, it could have been so easy to stay inside of like, why is this happening to us? Yeah, why are you getting these chronic, like to stay in that, and then to be able to get to the other side over and over and over again to go, oh, it's happening for us and for them.
Yeah. Yes, it absolutely was. And then to stand there and also look at these rooms of these epic practitioners who were now able and aware to sit with their clients and help their clients in this way that people need. Mm-hmm. And to realize, had I listened all those years or whatever prior to my teachers who said, don't drop out. You need a modality that people will, cover under benefits. And now here these practitioners are earning incomes for themselves or additional income or providing a different service that's not covered under benefits. Yeah. And so that is really why you got to have the soul of a healer in the heart of a renegade. And when you have an awareness, you need to follow it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's part 1 of how SIT was born. Originally, we called our company Empowered Healers Academy. And Subconscious Imprinting Technique, aka SIT, was the modality within it. And a couple of years ago, we ended up just going all in on Sit With It, because that's really what we're helping people do, is sit with the emotions, the shame, the guilt, the feelings.
And really helping practitioners be so solid in themselves to be able to navigate and handle whatever their clients need to sit with.
Yeah.
And to really watch the power at play of this type of work.
Yeah. And we've got now practitioners in 8 different countries who facilitate in 4 different languages. And we feel absolutely honored. I'll speak on behalf of both of us to do this. And all of it happened because of working through one of the greatest tragedies of my life. And I actually just, before we end this, I want to share the first opening line. I actually have my dad's suicide note
In your hand right now.
in my hand right now, and it is Father's Day. And he started it by saying, "Where to start this? I feel that I do not want to start over again. I just do not have anything left." So it's right there in the note that decision was all because of a feeling.
Yeah.
It was that I feel that I do not want to start over again. And so there are so many people that are walking around with feelings that they don't know what to do with. They don't know how to just feel them. They don't know how to allow it to just process through without grabbing food, drugs, porn, alcohol,
People.
or in the worst case, suicide as a way to escape that feeling. And so I'm incredibly proud of what we have brought into the world. And thank you, Dad. Happy Father's Day. Thank you to those of you who are listening right now. Thank you to our practitioners who are on this mission. We appreciate you. And we'll be back for part 2, where we talk a little bit more about the mission of SIT and what it really is and where we're going with it. Thanks, everybody.
If you got value from this episode, share it with a fellow renegade and make sure to subscribe. Leave a review for your chance to win some swag and a shout out on the podcast. And for the episode show notes, head to therenegadepodcast.com. We'll see you on the next episode.